February 6th, 2019. Wednesday, February 6th, 2019. Because it was garbage day, right? Alright. So I've got my 4 short haikus. I don't know if anybody's piggybacking my signal. I don't really care, I guess. I mean, you just gotta say that. So here we are. Emotions regulated. No, in the emotion regulation segment of the module. My bad. And, as always, I'm still not a therapist. I'm still a consumer, client, practitioner. There you go. So I'm not really a client anymore. I'm a practitioner of the mental health arts, I guess. Because it's going to be an art form by the time we're all done with it. Man, watching people go through the same rigmarole. I mean, not so here it comes. Here it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Piggyback, whatever. Of course, no one's watching. It's distraction though. Oh, so the same rigmarole. And the deal is like, I think it's crazy. I know that it must be, even though their stuff is not going to be as crazy as mine, it took that level of crazy stuff to make me this vulnerable. Because before I had no idea any of this weird stuff was going on. I mean, I'm one of the original Kill Your Television bumper sticker people. People used to ask me in the early 90s, late 80s, what's your favorite TV show? Like, we're going to have a conversation about it or something. I'd be like, Blue Screen. Excuse me? At the blue screen, you know, when you plug in your VCR and there's no video in there and it's like just waiting for something and it's just solid blue. I was like, that's my favorite TV show. They're just like, so off to the mental health, but now you got all kinds of people watching cool, like, woo, they didn't have that stuff. They just had blue screen back then. So, I mean, at least it was, you know, nobody talking, lying, weird bullshit. Here we go. Anomaly. Anomaly, king of the piggybacker that piggybacked into the flippin' into my message to the sheriff. That was hilarious. That was truly hilarious. I mean, that was a funny one. So yes, anybody that's having any kind of like potential for being triggered, do not watch this video. Just stop right there. Don't watch it. Because I am just like, I'm a trigger. And that's all I am. All I was made to be. Bait and a trigger. Oh, and yeah. But that's not even PG, much less PC. So now we're going to do a little emotion regulation handout. Emotion regulation, so DBT is dialectical behavior therapy. It's cognitive behavior therapy skills. Cognitive means thinking. So it's modifying your behavior by using your conscious and logical mind. And DBT, the way I took it, has, and I do have permission to do this, as far as I know, no one's called up and said, hey man, can't do it. No one's written me at the post office and said that, and no one sent the sheriff by, which I'm sure they would if they could, if they wanted to. So, it's, yeah, who cares? No one's really watching this video. Whoever's watching it already heard this, feel like about 10 bazillion times. I mean, whoever's not watching it, like that group home where I wasn't at, and, college where my records are frozen, and so I wasn't there, and I never got invited to be in the honor thing, and I never got all A's and B's without studying either. And like that massage school where I got highest score on like pathology and stuff like that, that school just doesn't even exist anymore, and everybody's dead. So so let's regulate our emotions. 15 Styles of Distorted Thinking, expanded version. The following paragraphs are the long explanation of each style. These can be used to gain a fuller understanding of all 15 styles, and especially of your top 3. So, we all have these like distortions in our thinking. It's like our thinking can sometimes be like walking literally. I betcha there's ways using quantum computers to actually watch it, and it's like watching a dream, right? I mean, your conscious thoughts are really not that much more regulated or undistorted from dreaming thoughts, which is really pretty disturbing, which is why you need to just and so these can be gained, these paragraphs of long explanations can be used to gain a fuller understanding of all 15 styles of distorting the thinking, and especially of each of our top 3. So that's why it's a good idea to go to a private therapist if you can afford it or have the insurance, and find out your top 3. So, 1, filtering. This distortion, thought distortion, is characterized by a sort of tunnel vision, looking at only one element of a situation to the exclusion of everything else. A single detail is picked out, and the whole event or situation is colored by this detail. For example, a draftsman who was uncomfortable with criticism was praised for the quality of his recent detailed drawings and asked if he could get the next job out a little quicker. He went home depressed. So, like, instead of being like, ooh, I got praise, he's, like, depressed. Having decided that his employer thought he was dawdling, he selected only one component of the conversation to respond to. He simply didn't hear the praise as a result of his fear of possible deficiency. Well, and there could be other fears attached to it, too. Just speaking personally. Each person has his or her own particular tunnel to look through. Some are hypersensitive to anything suggesting loss and blind to any indication of gain. For others, the slightest possibility of danger sticks out like a barb in a scene that is otherwise warm with contentment. People who are feeling depressed may select from their People who are feeling depressed may select from their environment elements suggesting loss. People who are feeling depressed may select from their environment elements suggesting loss. People prone to anxiety may select danger, and those who frequently feel angry may select evidence of injustice. The process of remembering can also be very selective. Well, I'm just going to say that practicing the observe skills that we read through in the mindfulness segment, that's why mindfulness is slipped in between each of the 3 modules over and over. You go through the rotation. And so practicing the observe and describe skills just automatically creates these new patterns in your brain. And on Coursera, there is this class, which I can't remember the name of, but it's so cool because it actually goes over the way that your brain makes the paths and the thinking paths and how you can create new paths. And so just by practicing those skills, just by practicing them, creates these new paths that then go and expand our ability to experience our emotional world, which really is what gives life all the color. It's like looking at a painting in gray or looking at it, in full color. So, anyway, onward. So people that are stuck in these ruts of brain pattern, emotion pattern, only can select kind of like one color at a time. The process, okay, but it can be expanded through just practicing some of those mindfulness skills, to describe and observe. The process of remembering can also be very selective. From your entire history and stock of experience, you may habitually remember only certain kinds of events. As a result, you may review your past and re-experience memories from that re-experience memories that characteristically leave you angry, anxious, or depressed. You can get addicted to feeling like that too, and intentionally pick those memories. And the more often you go down that path in your brain, the more it becomes like that migration rut that, the caribou travel through in Alaska or whatever. So, and, I mean, the creepy people will try and force you into that box, into that rut. They're just constantly dominating you, pushing and pushing and pushing. So then it's just like maybe sometimes it's safer. That's why the caribou go down that migrate path, right? Because then they try and get in the middle of it, and then the ones on the outside edge, that's some people's, it's just different strategies, lifestyle strategies. And maybe, I'm not going to say Native American people, but maybe people that, do the totem things and think of psychology in that way. Sort of, tarot deck is actually psychology, because it's creating those pathways in your brain and forcing you down a different pathway to think about stuff using the picture and the archetype. It's like the ink blot cards, only backwards. So, yeah, I don't know where I was wandering off with that thought, but here we go. Back to this. The so the process of remembering characteristically, okay. By the very process of filtering, you magnify and awfulize your thoughts. When you pull negative things out of context, isolated from all the good experience around you, you make them larger and more awful than they really are. The end result is that all your fears, losses, and irritations become exaggerated in importance because they fill your awareness to the exclusion of everything else. Keywords for this kind of filtering are terrible, awful, disgusting, horrendous, and so on. A key phrase is, I can't stand it. Now, before I go on to that, I'm just looking, but I think that filtering can work in two different directions. I don't know if one of the other 15 is going to deal with the other aspect of filtering, but obviously, and it seems like imbalanced not to include it in this expanded long, what did it say it was? Long explanation of each style. It seems odd not to include the daydreaming aspect of filtering. So, I mean, filtering, you could filter out. The process of remembering can also be very selective. From your entire history and stock of experiences, you may remember only certain kinds of events. As a result, you may review your past and re-experience memories that characteristically leave you feeling too sexy for your shirt, too smart for, obeying the law, or, I mean, you could remember all different kinds of things, and obviously we've all seen people that remember everything like they're so cool, and sometimes they are, but I mean everybody has both sides. That's all I'm saying. So filtering can get out of balance in both directions, or maybe some um, like person that was really super hot in like high school or something, and they just like go on through their life, and now they're like 55 years old and they're like still, um, you know, like hanging out and trying to pick up like 20-year-old people or something. And that's kind of like filtering. You would have to be doing a lot of filtering, I would think, to think that that was like a good idea, or, you know, gonna be a positive experience in either direction. I mean, like, first of all, you'd have to be filtering because, like, what would you be thinking? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, and so you might, by the very process of filtering, you magnify, and you might not awfulize your thoughts. You might awesomeize your thoughts far too much. So, you know, I think that middle path. And this did not cover it. If these people would have written it professionally, it would have been so much better. Instead, I've wasted time trying to invent my own explanation for what I'm trying to say. No, I really appreciate this material. Luckily, the people are not going to be watching this, hopefully. Well, and if they are, hello. I know you've been trying to lock me up for a while now. So, polarized thinking. Now we can just move on to number 2 and perhaps pick that one apart. The hallmark of this distortion, the hallmark of this distortion is an insistence on dichotomous choices. I should look that up. It's DICHOTOMOUS. And I know it's pronounced dichotomous because I've heard people say it before and we've looked it up before, but I can't remember what it says, but I bet they're going to tell us. Yes. You tend to perceive everything in extremes with very little room for a middle ground. People and things are good or bad, wonderful or horrible. This creates a black and white world, and because you miss all the nuances of gray, your reactions to events swing from one emotional extreme to another. The greatest danger in polarized thinking is its impact on how you judge yourself. If you aren't perfect or brilliant, then you must be a failure or an imbecile. There's no room for mistakes or mediocrity. A charter bus driver told himself he was a real loser when he took the wrong freeway exit and had to drive several miles out of his way. One mistake and he was incompetent and worthless. A single parent with 3 children was determined to be strong and in charge. The moment she felt tired or slightly anxious, she began thinking of herself as weak, felt disgusted with herself, or criticized herself in conversations with friends. Frankly, if you're a healthy person, hearing about all this stuff just makes you kind of like, oh, I'm testing my mental boundaries right now. I'm testing my mental boundaries. Not that I'm healthy. I mean, I've felt a lot of these things that I've read over, and it's like so like, or going to group is another thing. It's like you really appreciate the other people because, but also it can be like testing because maybe they're in a space that you've already passed through, and yeah, and you can't judge because who the hell are you to judge anything like that for, I mean, because we're all where we're at any given time. So yeah. But sometimes reading this stuff, it's just like, especially in the emotion stuff, you're just like, because obviously, I mean, my big joke is that I don't know what the middle is. It's just something I pass over or through as I'm swinging from one extreme to the other. And I'm so far left that I meet the right, or what did I used to say? I'm so far alt left that I'm meeting the alt right in the middle, and I'm like the alt central. So yeah, reading polarized thinking was just like a bit much right there. Overgeneralization. Here's another good one. I mean, really, all of these. All 15. Overgeneralization. In this distortion, you make a broad, generalized conclusion based on a single incident or piece of evidence. One slipped stitch means I'll never learn how to sew. A rejection on the dance floor means nobody would ever want to dance with me. If you got sick on a train once, you will never take a train again. If you got dizzy on a sixth floor balcony, you will never go out there again. I'm not like that. If you felt anxious the last time your husband took a business trip, you'll be a wreck every time he leaves town. One bad experience means that whenever you're in a similar situation, you will repeat the bad experience. That's when a little short-term memory loss might be helpful. So this distortion inevitably leads to a more and more restricted life, I bet. Overgeneralizations are often couched in the forms of absolute statements, as if there were some immutable law that governs and limits your chances at happiness. You're overgeneralizing when you absolutely conclude that nobody loves me. I'll never be able to trust anyone again. I will always be sad. I could never get a better job. No one would stay my friend if they really knew me. A lot of people would be my friends. Some of them actually just don't be my friend because other people beat them up for being my friend. So yeah, it's been a while and I don't really care anymore. If people are too chicken, I just don't care. If I'm not good enough for people to overcome it, I don't really care. And besides which, the people that do overcome it end up dead, so it's like I'm not going to ask people like, hey, will you be my friend? Not that I really have had very many friends, but I mean, people that even get close to me seem to like, people that even change their mind that I'm not evil, the next thing I know, they're dead, so it's just like, yeah, not worth it. Well, we don't want to say everybody, because that would be overgeneralization. Many people, kind of a distracting number of people have had that happen. Oh, cue words that indicate clue words that indicate you may be overgeneralizing are all, every, none, never, always, everybody, and nobody. Fourth distortion, mind reading. When you mind read, you make snap judgments about others. He's just acting that way because he's jealous. She's with you for your money. He's afraid to show he cares. There's no evidence, but it just seems right. In most instances, mind readers make assumptions about how other people are feeling and what motivates them. For example, you may conclude he visited her 3 times last week because he was A, in love, B, angry at his old girlfriend and knew she'd find out, or C, depressed and on the rebound, or D, afraid of being alone again. You can take your choice, but acting on any of these arbitrary conclusions may be disastrous. Right? You would want to check your facts. Or maybe mind your own business, depending on the situation. As a mind reader, you also make assumptions about how people are reacting to things around them, particularly how they are reacting to you. When I am this close, he sees how unattractive I am. She thinks I'm really immature. They're getting ready to fire me. These assumptions are usually untested. They're born from intuition, hunches, vague misgivings, or 1 or 2 past experiences, but they are believed as if they were fact. Mind reading depends on a process called projection. You imagine that people feel the same way you do and react to things the same way you do. Therefore, you don't watch or listen closely enough to notice that they are actually different. If you get angry when someone is late, you imagine everyone acts that way. If you get angry when someone is late, you imagine that everyone acts that way. If you feel excruciatingly sensitive to rejection, you expect most people to feel the same. If you are very judgmental about particular habits and traits, you assume others share your belief. Mind readers jump to conclusions that are true for them without checking whether or not they are true for others. So again, just check your facts. Check your facts. And then I'm going to say, let's see, so we're at 4. We're going to do catastrophizing, which is number 5. Then I'm going to mark it and start with number 6 on tomorrow's DBT thing. All right. So the 5th way of distorting thinking is catastrophizing. If you catastrophize, a small leak, oh yeah, what I wanted to say, mind reading, but I wanted to finish that, is I'm going to read that starfish thing, which I actually had the head counselor, I tried to have her read it before I left, because I'm like, I don't feel safe in group. I don't feel safe in group. I don't feel like my dog's safe in group. And so then I'm like, I gave her this stalking handout that I found on starfishgirl.org. And it's like all these things. And when I found it, I'm like, aha. And I like gave it to the sheriff, gave it, but everybody already friggin' knew. They already knew. They just act like they don't know. It's like, are you, but you know, that's just the way how it goes in large, organized, systemic type deals, I guess. So yeah, so I gave it to her on the week after the one. Then I called her, talked to her on the phone, had this long conversation, told her, you know, we can go about doing this any way that you want. We can have it be my question. We can have it be your question. We can have it be confidential. We can have you say my name. I don't really care. I said, but I want to talk about this issue and have you bring it up at group as a safety issue. So the next group that I went to, which actually ended up being my last one, because I left in the middle of it, because I was like, that is just enough. So she like socially cuts me again, and at this point I'm able to see when and this is the last group where it was just the women. There were no male clientele because the boys had already come in, passed judgment on me, decided I was not like a menace, a threat, really any kind of anything to pay attention to or hassle with. The women just keep going and keep going and keep going because frankly they're fucking psychotic. You are jealous bitches and keep going to group. But no, you don't go to group to do anything except for hassle other women, which is what happened to matriarchy in the first place and why we went to patriarchy. Because I've been studying this stuff for a while now. And I finally have figured it out. So, yeah. So my last group, we're going over this material. And frankly, a couple of times, one of the gang leader women that I call GGQ at this point, was making fun of me. Like, don't you, like, you know, like Ivanka vacuuming the crumbs. Like that art installation. Like, don't you think that they're telling you things that are going to make you vulnerable? It's like, yes, obviously they are telling us things that are going to make us totally vulnerable to organized crime, and especially organized social crimes, which is what women commit. Women commit social crimes. They're organized, and the things that they do to other women are criminal, and they don't leave any marks. No marks. Nothing you can see. It's just like this thing that they're doing to women about the babies. You know what? They're making it so that these social crime women will be able to poison women's babies past the point when the women can get an abortion. Women will be forced to bear these shame babies because that's really, I mean, I've seen these women drool over the idea when someone gets pregnant that they hate. They're like, God, maybe she'll have a black baby. And I even saw that happen on Californication, that creepy David Duchovny, which obviously is another one of those creepy things that's related to this place. Everything's related to these owners yanking people's dog chain. So, yeah. And the baby did come out, and they're all a bunch of, you know, white people. And so, of course, she was a weirdo liberal, and it's just creepy. People's malice is creepy. So yeah, in this group, it was basically overrun by the fucking social crime women. People think of them as the mean girls, but they are social criminals, and they do poison people. And I remember hearing about it first from a cheerleader because oh ho ho, so funny to do this mean trick and put X-Lax in other girls, whatever. And I don't actually remember whether we ever did that to anybody. I mean, definitely we thought it was a funny idea. We're not very nice little teenagers. We were pretty messed up, pretty damaged from the environment that we were in and the situations that we encountered, and but I don't think that we ever did that. I think we just laughed about it. But it was a cheerleader that I heard it from. And since then, since I've been sick and I've actually managed to like get well, and since I've watched the poison and just the variety of when I get sick, who I'm hanging out with if I get sick, what is going on in my interior house environment if I happen to get sick, how I get sick, what is going on when I hang out with who. I'm like, oh. So this stuff just goes back, probably thousands of years. Probably before we even knew the actual mechanism, people were intentionally doing these biologic, sort of like biological warfare. Probably they put shit in each other's, who peed in your Cheerios? I mean, I've watched a lot of just like, yeah, people are weird. It's been a weird experience. And so this counselor, I told her the week before, I gave her this starfishgirl.org group stalking. It's about being stalked by large organized transoceanic crime, TOC crime, and large organized groups anyways. And I was just like, yeah, that's exactly it. So then I try to give it to her. She like, and then I talked to her on the phone. I said, have you read it? No, she hadn't read it. So then I go back to the group. Then she goes over all these safety issues, all this again at the head of the table. Oh, and she's so cute, and she looks like Elizabeth Warren, and she's just like such a cute little lady with her little short hair and her glasses and she's a grandma. She goes over the whole safety thing to make sure that everybody in the group feels safe, and she's looking at me and looking at me and looking at me, and then she doesn't say anything about my issue, and she's like, have I forgotten anything? And I'm just like sitting there, because at this point, I've been through the group 3.5 times. I've had the entire group play with me like this, and several counselors rotate through. There's been a constant fluctuation, rotation, extra counselor. They put in my counselor's husband without telling me that he was my counselor's husband to see if I could catch on that he was my counselor's husband, which obviously I pretty much quickly did. Everybody played the dog games and all kinds of just creepy shit. So at this point, I'm just like, Mona Lisa half smile. Learned it from the bitch. So she's like, did I forget anything? I'm like, we just sit there like this for a minute. And so then we carry on. She tries to play off the other counselor. The other counselor's just like, I don't fucking want to be here. But there she was. And then we carry on with the group. And literally, I don't know what the woman across from me did, but my dog was like lying next to my side. He never does. Never seen him do this before. He had been in that group, since he was a puppy. He'd just been going to group. That's what he did for his socialization, was we went to the group. And so he's very, very socialized, very used to being in there. And this weird woman doing that white girl trying to talk like a Mexican girl accent. And I don't know what she did. I do not know what happened. But something happened under the table. And she's, I'm not saying this in a mean way, but just was unhappy. And she sat weird. And my dog growled under the table. Like like he was going to defend me. And I was like, holy shit. I just like grabbed him, you know? I mean, he's on lead anyways, but I have not ever. Like, he just felt like he was going to defend me. I don't know, maybe she was pointing something at me. Maybe she was doing something dangerous, but he was defending me, and and I just like, I didn't even screw around. I just closed up my book, put it in my bag. The teacher's all like, what's going on? I didn't even answer her. Did not even answer. I was not pissed off, but I was just like, that is enough. And I just closed up my stuff. I just like walked out. And she like followed me a little bit out the door, and she said, what? And I said, we're leaving because we do not feel safe. I said, I do not feel safe. You are not providing a safe atmosphere for my dog. I said, I am concerned about my dog's safety in your group. Not to mention my safety, because the group was obviously pointed at me, trying to get me to kill myself. But I just was like, that is enough. And you know, and when she like we did get into it, I said, did you ever read that thing? She's like, no, I never. I said, you know, that's enough. But when I called the ombudsman to report this as a complaint, for one thing, it's a very small town, and the ombudsman had the same last name as the counselor that I wanted to report. So that's going to be probably a lot of fucking use. And the other thing, and I'm not saying that it 100% wouldn't be, but I'd say 50-50 chance that, you know. And the other thing was that I would have to have signed over a release so that the ombudsman, that may or may not be a closely related family member to the person that I actually want to turn in, would have had access to more of my records than I have access to. So I just didn't fill out a complaint. I just turned it in to and that's the way how that goes. So yeah. So I'm going to read these things, but I think that for my thing, I'm going to find that Starfish Girl thing, copy of it, and I'm just going to read that out loud periodically so that people, because the biggest thing about these skills is they're incomplete. The parts that would really empower people seem to be lacking. My experience with the group was that it was taken over by the women who specifically do. I mean, I just don't have anything else to call them except for social crimes. They're social terrorists is what they are. And we've all been in school, and people would say that I was one, but I would say that I was defending me and my friends from what are now becoming known as cry bully people, and they're cry bullies. And frankly, Covington is a great example of the right-wing side of cry bullies. Those boys probably were prepped by their parents and probably even maybe the PR company before they went out there, and who knows, maybe they hired that Indian guy and the black Israelites to create the situation in front of Lincoln Memorial in Crestview, whatever, in order to give these boys a chance to be crybabies, cry bullies. I mean, that's what the situation looks like to me, because that's what I grew up with. So I'm going to find that group stalking thing, because I just think that is a good thing to just kind of rotate through too. So my version of this is I'm just going to read through it over and over again, and that's my plan anyways, and insert that stalking thing into the mindfulness, because being group stalked is definitely going to become more and more of an issue. I think people are going to be pretty astonished at what it feels like when it happens to them. And empowering against it is a lifetime thing for me that I've been doing for decades now. So, yep. The boys are out there with their guns, and the girls are in the kitchen doing sick things with the psych war. Man. So yeah, I'm kind of a soldier too. And before I even knew I had the PTSD, I'd make jokes about like, I'm like Vietnam vet. I hear the helicopters from my childhood. then they diagnose me. You have severe post-traumatic stress disorder, which doesn't make me dangerous. It just makes me a little weird. But I'm weird in my own way. So screw with it at your own